Yo folks, Avry here doing a special pre-taping of Avry's Sports Show for Tuesday night. We're back in the old studios, unfortunately. But you know what? You make do with what's going on. You make do with things. So I'm trying to dial up Mr. Jason Gregor from the Team 1260 right now. Get him on. Jason's a fantastic guy. I love talking to him. Known Jason for many, many, many years. Are you kidding? Okay, that's strange. Jason's number. Okay, I'm a goof. Okay, I'm a goof. I know what I was doing. Doy. Okay, never mind. We got it now. We got it figured out now. I'm a clown. I'm a clown. But that's Avry Sports Show for you. Doing a lot of funny things. Here we go. Jason Gregor on the way.
Hello.
Hey, Jason. How you doing, man? Avry here.
Hey, I'm good, man. You?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Fantastic. Thanks for coming on tonight, Jason.
Hey, no problem.
I know, Jason. I've known you now for, I want to say, 6-7 years now. Does it feel weird interviewing me, me interviewing you now? Because you knew me when I was this little pint-sized 13-year-old guy at Oil and Oil King games.
Well, you've definitely put in a lot of work, that's for sure. So it is good to see that guys put in their time, and in this business, I think it's people who work the hardest are usually the ones who become the most successful.
Exactly. And likewise for you, Jason, with your show on the Team 1260, sir.
Oh, well, thanks. No, it's been fun, a lot of fun. Learned a lot from John Short.
That's true. Edmonton legend here. I know I want to bring on tonight. Talk about the CFL, talk about the Edmonton Eskimos. I know the Eskimos now 4-2 ball club. An impressive win over Saskatchewan, 28-20 this weekend, Jason.
Yeah, I didn't watch it live. I was doing the fights, but I watched the PVR of it. And the Eskimos, I'll give them credit. Their offense is starting to come around. Played a little bit better. I thought Saskatchewan's defensive backs were awful though for a majority of that game. And the Eskimos, their defense isn't going to give up a lot of points. And I think they will have a chance to win every game just because their defense is so good. Like they are on pace to crush the single season record for fewest points allowed in a year. They're right now they're 100 on pace for 100 fewer than anything we've seen in a long time. So their defense is great. Burnett has capitalized and scored another touchdown. Like this offense really, the offense still hasn't put up enough points. I think when we come, against the BCs and I think the team that you have to beat, they're going to have to put up more points eventually offensively. But they're getting better. I'd be curious to see how good they'd be if they were completely healthy. They've been ravaged by injuries on both the offensive and defensive line, and so you have to give them credit. But I'm not one who's I need to see more from their offense before I think they're a championship caliber team.
True, agreed. You mentioned defense. Another guy, J.C. Sherritt, he's been an absolute beast. He had a 7-tackle game, and he still wasn't satisfied with performance. I mean, that says a lot about J.C. Sherritt in my mind.
Well, Sherritt's been such a sure tackler this year. I think that's been the biggest thing for him. And he's around the ball. They had a lot of changes on the defensive line. And, Sherritt's the first one to point his finger at his defensive line and say they're a big key to his success. They open up a lot of holes. They allow him to get to the ball carrier, and then he finishes off. And, Sherritt is a perfectionist for sure, but right now he's definitely one of the leading candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. He's been all over the field, and, he shows you don't have to be the biggest linebacker to be successful. He's got great instincts. He flows to the ball very well. And he understands this defense. I think it's a big advantage for him, having worked with Mark Nelson last year when he was a linebacker coach. He really understands Nelson's philosophy and what he wants from him. And I think he understands him as a person. That's a big advantage. So those two are definitely on the same page. And Sherritt's been all world this year. It's really it's surprising, I think, how dominant he's been. He was good last year, but he's playing on the outside. He moves to the middle linebacker position, and he's definitely not the biggest linebacker when you look at a lot of the greats we've seen who come through here before. But to me, he reminds me a lot. If I had to look at all the great Eskimo linebackers, he probably reminds me the most of Willie Pless.
Really, Willie Pless?
very quick to the ball. He's not as he wasn't never as a big hitter like Dan Kepley was. Kepley would crush guys, and he doesn't have that. I think he's a little bit faster than Danny Bass was. But I see, and I'm not saying he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year 5 years in a row like Willie Pless was. Pless is one of the best linebackers ever. But I see similarities in their games.
No, I definitely do agree with you on that fact, Jason. You mentioned the offense, though. I got to admit, Steven Giles, 18 for 23, 282 yards, and a touchdown pass. Steven Giles, he's figuring things out now back in Edmonton again. He's really starting to figure things out now as the year goes on.
Well, no, he's definitely gotten better. I think that, they've changed the offense. They're not... Steven Giles doesn't have a great touch to go down the field on big plays. So you see them now, and they're going, a lot more slant patterns, a lot more crossing routes. And, when Giles has to throw it to a guy rather than throw it to a spot, I think he's better. And, they picked that up. And so Giles has been good. And, him and Kerry Coke seem to have a pretty good connection downfield. When you look at the big plays the Eskimos have had this year, the majority of them have come to Coke. And Fred Stamps now has definitely got his hands back after some early season struggles. It's 3 straight games now that Stamps, I think, has played quite well, and so that helps. But Giles, he's getting better. And the thing about Giles is when they won on Friday night, that ties his career high for most wins in a season as a starting quarterback. So he really has never had much success up until this point.
No, I have to agree with you in there. And, of course, another receiver that stepped up well, a guy who didn't play a whole lot as rookie year, Nate Cohorn. Against Saskatchewan, Nate Cohorn had another fantastic game. His sophomore year in the CFL has been, nothing short of spectacular for the young guy.
Well, Cohorn was someone I know they were very high on when they drafted him, 2 years ago in the first round. And last year they just had him learn. He didn't get involved in the offense at all. And this year, when Carr went down with injury, Cohorn was able to step in and I think played great. And right now he's become more reliable. Like Greg Carr dropped a few passes again on Friday night, and I'll be honest. I'll say right now, I'd be surprised if Greg Carr lasts in Edmonton a very long time. He'll probably stay here this entire year and maybe next, but I don't see him being long in Edmonton. He just he drops too many balls, and that's just not something you can have. And the thing about Cohorn to me is when you look at receivers recently, he's a guy who maybe becomes like a Jason Claremont. He's big, he's physical, he'll block, and he's got good hands. And he's proven that, if you're 2nd and 7 or 8, he can be a reliable guy, and that's key.
That's very true. Now this team takes on Montreal, and Montreal, their team has been looking very human. They're 3-3 because the Alouettes, they don't know what it's like to be 500 very much in their history, and it's really interesting to see where the Alouettes are right now. Could Edmonton give this team a fight next week, do you think, Jason?
Well, it's funny. The Eskimos have dominated in what they fared a lot better against the Owls at home the last decade. They go into Montreal, and usually they get spanked. So, it's a home game again for the Eskimos. They came off the bye week the week before, and outside of Ronnie Prude, it doesn't look like they had any serious injuries for them. So, they didn't add to their totals. And slowly they're going to start getting some other guys back, especially on their defensive line. We didn't notice the same pressure from the defensive line. And I think, against Montreal and Anthony Calvillo, everybody knows he gets the ball away quick. So they're going to have to get some pressure on him. I think J.C. Sherritt obviously will be a key, but T.J. Hill's another guy. I think him and Joe Burnett likely are the guys who are going to have to play great. But Montreal, eventually they weren't going to be the class of the East every year. And I think, people are wondering, is Anthony Calvillo finally slowing down? I think that's a little bit of it. Richardson's having an awful season as the receivers drop too many passes. And their offensive line just isn't as good as it used to be. They're not going to have 3 guys who are all Canadians, which it seems like they've had 2 or 3 every year for the last decade. So it is a kind of a downtime for the Alouettes, but with that organization, Jim Pop, I don't expect them to be down for a long time. Although, can McPherson ever replace Calvillo? We'll never know until he actually gets some playing time. But I think the Eskimos have a very good chance to beat the Owls on Friday.
That's interesting. I'm mentioning the CFL right now. There's so much parity right now, except for Winnipeg. Look at the East Division right now. It's interesting. Everybody is at 3-3. When was the last time you saw this much parity in the CFL, Jason?
Well, last year it was rather tight, and I think you're starting to see it more almost in every league, right? You're getting better play. There's no one who's really stood out, right? Like the Eskimos are 4-2, but their defense, we can argue, is winning them games. Toronto has imploded a few times. Saskatchewan's been awful in the fourth quarter of a few games. Calgary's been really good or really bad. It's it's very interesting and definitely makes it hard to predict on what's going to happen week to week. Usually, to me, after Labor Day is when things start to settle down a little bit, and I'm curious to see what happens. We saw the big announcement today. Cory Boyd gets released from Toronto. The guy's leading the league in rushing yards, and he's released because supposedly he's not a good teammate. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the second half, and I'm curious to see if a team like Winnipeg maybe picks up Boyd.
Right, that'd be interesting. I've heard rumors though that maybe Edmonton would consider picking him up though. That'd be interesting though, because you have Hugh Charles, Cal McCarty. I know you want everyday back. Where do you fit in that kind of logjam at running back? Where would Cory Boyd fit here in Edmonton, Jason?
Well, Boyd's a big. Boyd's like Jerome Messam was, right? Big body, pounding, bruising back. I'm not sure that the Eskimos salary cap will fit Cory Boyd. I have Eric Tillman on my show every week, and he talked about the fact that with all the injuries, they've become the cap's become somewhat of an issue for them, just because they have a lot of flexibility because they got rid of Ricky Ray, but with all these injuries, it's piled up. So I know everybody always says that because you look at teams and they say, well, maybe the Eskimos need a pure running back because Hugh Charles isn't a big enough guy who can't do it all the time, and I guess I see some validity in that, but. It's these allegations that Cory Boyd wasn't a great teammate. Rob Murphy, who went on Twitter and said the guy was a fraud, was a horrible teammate. This is coming from a former teammate. So, there's definitely some red flags there, I would think. But, I'm sure Eric Tillman might do his due diligence. But the only way Cory Boyd's going to come to Edmonton is if he's coming on a smaller contract than what he was making in Toronto.
Exactly. Now, mentioning the Argonauts, though, I mean, it's interesting because everybody was saying, Toronto, they really fleeced Edmonton. And at first, I thought so, but this Toronto Argonauts team, they're having their stumbles. And Ricky Ray right now, he's so out of the gate, though. And I think in Toronto, it's a little bit of a panic mode because they were expecting to be, a 5-0 team right now, or 5-1.
Well, yeah, if they were expecting that, they're unrealistic. Like, Ricky Ray is obviously a very good quarterback,
yes.
But he struggled this week, that's for sure. Had the 4 interceptions. Not a good week for him. The Argos haven't been a good team for quite a while. And while they got Ricky Ray, I think they were expecting him to come in and help some things, but they don't have a great receiving corps. Like, Chad Owens is their leading receiver, and we've seen Chad Owens for years in the league. Like, he's good, but he's not a G. Roy Simon or a Fred Stamps or anything like that as a receiver. And Jason Barnes, I saw him here in Edmonton, and I told everybody who would listen that Jason Barnes is not a number 1 receiver. He's not a guy who can create separation. He's an exceptional complementary receiver, and number 2, and likely a number 3, but he's not a number 1. And it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is usually. If you don't have a great receiver, at least one, it's hard to have any sort of success. And I think, in Toronto, obviously there's some issues with the continuity of that team when they released their leading rusher, and their offensive line wasn't good to start the season, and I don't expect them to be that good. I think the Argos, like Hamilton and Montreal, I could see Toronto maybe being a 10-8 team, and if they are, they'll be in the playoffs.
That'd be interesting. I know you're talking about Toronto, and it's funny because even though everybody's at 3-3 for the most part, Hamilton has really been a team that's just come out like gangbusters. Henry Burris, Andy Fantus, it's working well for that club right now in the Steel Town.
I think Hamilton might have the best playmakers across the board. Walker is obviously the running back. Chris Williams is dynamic as a return guy and as a receiver. You throw in Andy Fantus, and Burr still has a cannon of an arm. I like their big play capability in Hamilton. They've got some consistency issues, and I'm not sure. George Cortez is a phenomenal offensive coordinator. I'm not sure what he is as a head coach. It's a completely different dynamic to go from being the OC, where you only have to focus on one aspect of the game, to now be the head coach, who you have to be involved a lot more, which is the motivational part of it, the mental part of the game. And I do think that's a little bit of an issue for them in Hamilton right now. They started 0-2, then they won 3 straight, and now, of course, they just lost. But Hamilton's a team that, I honestly think the East final will be Hamilton and Toronto when it's all said and done this year.
Hamilton, Toronto. Who do you think he's having the West, Jason? Who will be in the West final, do you think?
BC would probably be my, the favorite. I think they're going to win the regular season, and so that automatically gives them a bye straight to the final. I think the Eskimos might surprise some people and give the Lions a run, but right now I would take the Lions offense over the Eskimos offense long term.
Okay, friend of mine, before I let you go, Jason, I know one quick NFL question. I know you're a big Miami Dolphins fan. Of course, the shocking news about Chad Johnson being released. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's a horrible situation for everybody involved.
Well, yeah, it's not good. Johnson at times, he's a guy who's put himself out there on Twitter and said a lot of things, and yeah, I've read some of his comments sometimes, and you kind of wondered what, if he was joking about, always kind of making light of his girlfriend or not. But obviously that domestic dispute, it's horrible for them. Johnson dropped a few passes in that first game, so I'm not sure, which has always been Johnson's kind of fault that he's had throughout his career. I'm not sure Chad Johnson was going to be the straw that stirred the drink of the offense for the Dolphins this year anyway, but it's just a distraction they obviously didn't want to have. I feel sorry for anybody who gets involved in a situation like that, especially, publicly. So, you hope that, she's okay and he gets whatever help he needs. But I honestly wasn't, as a big Miami fan, I didn't think Chad Johnson was going to be the answer to replacing Brandon Marshall, other than replace him as a distraction. And obviously that was the case early, maybe sooner than people thought, and now he's done. And I don't see a team giving him another shot after what he did off the field.
Right. It'll be interesting though. But Jason, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a blast as always. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
You bet, Avery. Good luck, man.
Thanks, Jason. Later, man. Jason Gregor from the Team 1260 and the Jason Gregor Show, which airs Monday to Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. Check it out. It's quality sports talk radio here in the City of Champions. That's all for now. See you folks on Tuesday. Bye!